Josh Taylor once again makes Barry McGuigan yell for joy as he defends his WBC light welterweight silver, that is, WBC light welterweight title. Such bullshit, the silver titles. In defeating Viktor Postol, the dangerous Ukrainian who, before this fight, his only other defeat was to Terence Crawford. It was certainly a dangerous fight to take for a guy who was only in his 13th fight. Postol had almost 5 times the amount of rounds and still is probably a pretty fresh 34 and gave Josh Taylor a much harder fight than the scorecards would leave you to believe. I think one of them read 108, 119, which is insane. It was a close fight. You could have said Postol won as much as 5 rounds. On the strength of the knockdown and the manner in which Taylor took the fight into his own hands and made it into a bit of a dogfight, he recognised he wasn't in control, tucked his chin down, got his hands up and started winging hooks, which is very commendable to do. A lot of fighters can't make that transition when the fight's uncomfortable or they're not really controlling the range. They kind of go into their shell and settle for a points decision. But no, Josh Taylor was willing to get stuck in. He was winging in hooks. It wasn't always the nicest fight to watch. It was a bit scrappy, but he made it work for himself. Now, Postol in the early goings, he probably won the majority of the first half of the fight. He was controlling the range, and it kind of reminded me of what Jack Johnson, the great old heavyweight champion, the first black ever heavyweight champion, was what he said back in the day of how your left hand, it's not just a jab, but it's like a rudder on a boat, which is used to control opponents. And Postol was doing that with Josh Taylor. He was sticking it out, he was confusing him, he was pushing him around, and he was making him feel, obviously, it was quite apparent that he wasn't controlling the range, and he was making him feel a bit in that no man's land, and that's why he was forced then to start making it into a bit of a dogfight. He was winging in shots, but he started to make it work for himself. So big kudos. I thought perhaps with the fight going later, and Taylor hadn't been longer than 9 rounds before, this might work to the Ukrainians' advantage, and the Iceman, as he's known, might start to pile on the pressure and find his shots more cleanly later on. But Taylor's stamina was holding up. Actually, when the final bell went, he was hardly breathing that heavy. So Josh Taylor's conditioning is obviously tremendous, but he made it into his own fight. And despite earlier on Postol looking very good, particularly round 4, he was touching Taylor quite a lot on the head, but Taylor got down and dirty, and he was making it work for him in his own way. The scorecards, that's ridiculous. It's another, it won't matter on the night because Taylor's ultimately going ahead, and he's probably the rightful winner there, I think, on the strength of the knockdown. But those scorecards, it's another blight a bit on just like what's going on here. It's a bit of corruption, isn't it? Postol won, I reckon, at least 4 rounds. May have won 5 rounds. It was a close competitive fight between 2 different interesting styles. Taylor now is poised to fight Jose Ramirez, the WBC champ, who won the vacant belt, I believe, who wasn't particularly great. So Taylor could very well, you could say, be poised to rip that away from him, then really make his name and give Barry McGuigan something else to jump about. But I guess commiserations to Viktor Postol, but he was very sporting at the end. He held up Josh Taylor's hand, pointed at him, he accepted it. There was no bitterness from him. You could say maybe he'll say he was a bit annoyed at the use of the head at times, but Postol, while he's got that classic kind of, some people would say, robotic European style. He's very upright and he's good at what he does, simple, but he times it well. But he doesn't have much wherewithal on the inside. He wasn't, he was a victim of having his head up and then, going, oh no, you're pushing your head into my cheekbone and my chin. It's like, well, you need to have the ability to get away from that as well. You can't always appeal to the ref. There's a lot of layers to boxing and rough stuff that you have to know how to manipulate yourself and smooth them over and make it work in your advantage. He wasn't. That was one of the reasons why Josh Taylor won. So a big thumbs up to him. Always good as well to hear a Scottish fighter doing well because they don't have as many world champions. So all good, all systems go. Congrats to the Tartan Terror.